Good evening, everyone. And some new developments happened this week. The Automotive Free Clinic is closing at the end of the month. And I went and picked up my tools this week. And I'm real proud of what was accomplished in the 5 years that it was open. We repaired almost 700 vehicles. We're really a big asset to the community. It wasn't really a money thing. It was really more of a burnout slash people's health failing type thing. Couldn't get volunteers, that type of thing. Probably could have gotten the money if we needed to, if we really wanted to, but I think people were just kind of burnt out. And I know last year when I left, I was extremely burnt out. That kind of work does it to you. There's only so many times a customer can come in, talk about their husband beating them, their kid ODing and dying, that it doesn't just wear you down to a nub, because you're not just fixing people's cars, you're also a bit of a counselor for people as well. So, that chapter of my life is over, and I think what I want to talk about today is what redneck organizing should look like, because that's what we did in Prattville, Alabama, where the Automotive Free Clinic was located. I think there's this idea that it has to be race-based, that redneck organizing has to somehow be about undermining whiteness. And I think this is based on a number of assumptions that are assumptions and actually needed to be tested against empirical realities. Namely, do rednecks have whiteness? And whiteness, white dominant culture, is top down culture, authoritarian, very rigid, not flexible, hierarchical, that sort of thing, undemocratic. And I don't think rednecks have white dominant culture. I think redneck culture is very much about independence, self-sufficiency, equality, non-hierarchy. There's like a sort of redneck type of anarchism that I think is very much like pirate anarchism, in the sense that it's very loosely organized and everybody sort of has the freedom to do what they will. But there's also this sort of governing sense of honor, that you should be honest and forthright with people and treat people well, that sort of balances out the worst instincts of individualism. And I've studied this for many years. I wrote a paper in 2009 about private property in Henniker, Alabama, and people routinely said, yeah, you can do whatever you want to on your private property as long as it doesn't harm somebody else. So they did add that qualifier. There was all this stuff that, rednecks believe in private property and you can do whatever you want to on your private property and nobody can tell you what to do. That's not exactly how rednecks saw it in my research. So it would be hard to argue that rednecks have white dominant culture, and then by extension, it's even harder to argue that rednecks are white at all. Italians were once not considered white. The Irish were once not considered white, and I think if you can be initiated into whiteness, you can be excommunicated out of it, and I believe that that's what has happened to rednecks as a culture, is that we've been excommunicated out of whiteness. So these sort of esoteric theories of white privilege, whiteness, white dominant culture, and all of this sort of stuff that's developed in urban areas, and especially in northern urban areas, can't really be translated into rural Alabama. It just doesn't work. I mean, there's no way that it can work. You can't go into a trailer park and start talking about white privilege, or nobody will listen to you. And you really don't talk about politics much at all. I found in our organizing, the politics were basically help the community, and that's what everybody agreed on. And we'd have discussions now and then about, the president or whatever, but nothing really deep. And race rarely came up. Race rarely came up. Um, Now, there was an instance in which a conservative donor tried to manipulate the AFC into not serving LGBTQ people. But there were also instances where liberal donors pulled their donation because I wouldn't capitulate to liberalism. So that sort of goes both ways. Um, yeah, so I don't think that, the idea that we should educate, that organizing in rural areas should be about educating rednecks about racial capitalism makes any sense whatsoever. I think what you have to do in organizing places where you may be different is that you have to go in and understand their culture, understand our culture, understand who we are as a people, how we see ourselves, listen to our music, eat our food, listen to our idioms, and see what our values are, and then try to build something with us that reflects our values. Because everybody has good values for the most part. I mean, there's not many cultures out there that are just evil in general. Most cultures are mostly looking to do the normal things that cultures do: have families, take care of your neighbors, that sort of thing. And I think, if you're going to do redneck organizing, you need to do it and you're not a redneck, you need to do it like an anthropologist, which is through participant observation and not as an activist, because you're going to get run out of town on rails if you do it as an activist. Now, I do want to address something in the ways that I did this, the ways that I did this work. It has come to my attention that because I did not try to convert so-called poor whites to anti-racism, I did not try to convert poor whites to anti-racism, that I was somehow capitulating or becoming a white supremacist myself. You never trusted me. The people who I used to organize with, who are saying these things about me, you never trusted me. You didn't trust me all the years that we did work together in Birmingham, and you thought I was your hero or whatever, thought I was a leader. You never trusted me. You never trusted me to go and do what was right and make decisions on the ground based on what is going on the ground. The only thing you really are committed to is an ideology. You're not committed to community. You're not committed to your neighbors. You're not committed to your friends. You're committed to a faith. And that's it. And it's nothing more than a type of fundamentalism. And this is what I've said for many, many years, that anti-racism is a fundamentalist secular religion. And if it's got saints and sinners, it's got confession processes, it's got people who are unable to be saved. It's got a salvation narrative. And some people are, and then some people like myself maybe are beyond saving now or have become heretics to the faith. And it's got to go. I think the time for this, I think it did have its time. I think it did have an important moment in American history. But this has got to go, and we have to start really organizing based on solidarity as opposed to identity politics. Identity politics is nothing but a tool for division. And it's time, working class solidarity. If you look at the statistics, labor unions are better at closing wage gaps between women and men, between white people and people of color than DEI initiatives. There's research on this. DEI initiatives do not work. They don't change the system in any way. Labor unions are much better at bridging the gap between workers and bringing people together. So it's time for the working class to come together and work together. And if people want to go into redneck communities and talk to rednecks, you need to treat them like human beings and not like people to be converted, because that's colonialistic. And we'll see y'all next time. Peace, y'all.